The monkey experiment. The monkey experiment. This is a good one. The monkey experiment. I haven't heard this one before, but this is definitely true. I wanted to make a special video on this because it's such a good experiment, good story. And this is given to us by former elder pioneer Lassie Stromkovich. And so he sent us this, and we're going to run it here. So bear with me, and we'll start the story. Okay, a description of the indoctrination process when one becomes a Jehovah's, the monkey experiment, and what things control you. So this will be interesting. The social monkey experiment. A social experiment was conducted where a monkey was placed in a cage without a roof. Every time the monkey tried to climb out, it was constantly doused with water. And in the end, the monkey chose to stay in the cage even though freedom was right in front of him. Furthermore, another monkey was put in the cage, which also gave up in the end after getting water on its head countless times. Then monkey number 3 was put in the cage, and something interesting happened. When the third monkey tried to climb up to the opening in the ceiling and was repeatedly bombarded with water on his head, what happened? Well, then the other 2 monkeys started to drag him down into the cage all the time until the third monkey also gave up. And the strange thing is that even though the cage was open at the top, none of the monkeys climbed out. It's just like the Kingdom Hall, you can walk out, the doors are open. The lawyers get up on the stand and said, yeah, people can leave anytime they want, just like the monkeys. So this experiment showed how fear, or the water, it's fear, right? That's what keeps JWs in, the water in this case, kept the monkeys trapped in the cage. Even though the roof was open, they could climb out. Finally, the fear became so great that they also began to protect each other from climbing out of the open cage. Isn't that something? Isn't that what Jehovah's Witnesses do? The same is true of fear within various sects and cults. I like the word cult. The overwhelming fear of the water makes them, in a way, trapped inside a cage. They have the freedom to leave the cage at any time, and when everyone in the cage shares the same fear, they will protect each other from leaving the cage to get out into freedom. And one can compare this cage to a huge cage that Jehovah's Witnesses are trapped in. Is a cage with over 8.5 million people? Is a cage with over 8.5 million people? Yes, it is a cage. They're trapped in every kingdom hall, every organization, every congregation. And some have voluntarily been deceived or were born down in this cage and have been showered with fear elements. And many have grown up in the cage and have been indoctrinated with fears all their lives. And what kind of fear elements, water, are poured over their heads of Jehovah's Witnesses that make it almost impossible to leave the organization? Well, the first fear element is none other than Satan, the devil. That's their biggest fear element. One is taught from childhood to believe that the whole world outside the cage is a wicked world, ruled by Satan, and that friendships with those outside the cage is enmity with God. James 4:4, friendship with the world is enmity with God. They use that a lot. And many others are converted and indoctrinated into adulthood to believe the same. Notice in the next quote, where the wicked world outside the cage will be destroyed at Armageddon, along with all the false religions. All who are not in the cage will be slaughtered to be annihilated on Judgment Day. Yeah, that's what they believe. See this quote from the Watchtower literature. There would be a great crowd out of all nations who would not experience death, but would have the prospect of living forever on earth. So you see, death is there. If you leave the cage, you are going to die. And that's what they teach. So are you among them? While the great crowd supports a small number of those with heavenly hopes who take the lead in the preaching work. And those of the great crowd are pictured as having received the mark for survival, Ezekiel 9:4-6. The mark is evidence that they are dedicated to the Lord, baptized as disciples of Jesus, and involved in cultivating a Christian personality or worship the only true God, page 124. So this is from Watchtower Literature. And the Watchtower of 2007, December 15th, page 14. But Jehovah's servants already belong to the only organization that will survive the end of the wicked system of things. And that's what they say. And so either one is baptized Jehovah's Witness or one is an enemy of God. And of course, one does not take a stand as one of Jehovah's Witnesses and will be destroyed forever at Armageddon, the great judgment day, where 99.99% of mankind will be killed. I used to ask the elders that, what about all these people? I had a hard time believing that when I was a JW pioneering, because I knew we weren't reaching everyone, and people, I didn't think God was that cruel. He goes on to say the second fear element is critical thinking. You can never read about negative reviews about Jehovah's Witnesses or about the faithful discreet slave, because it's something that comes from Satan the devil that will destroy your faith. And you must also never watch YouTube videos that speak critically of the organization, like this one. And the third fear element is obedience to the faithful and discreet slave. You must show total obedience to the faithful and discreet slave, following in everything they say and decide. And the Watchtower Study Edition 2013, January 15th, page 16. When that time comes, it may be possible that the vital guidance we receive from Jehovah's organization does not seem practical from a human standpoint. We must all be ready to follow the instructions we may receive, whether they seem sensible from a strategic or human point of view or not. And yes, what does this show? Well, if you do not trust the faithful discreet slave by criticizing them publicly, you will be excluded. And then we automatically enter the next fear element. How does the faithful discreet slave see itself? The next quote. And this is from their magazines. It says, it's important that we appreciate this fact and respond to the slave's directions as if they were God's voice. And that's what they teach. The Watchtower is more powerful than the Bible itself. And because that is God's purpose. Watchtower 1957, June 15th, page 370. This is an old quote from 1957, but times have changed, haven't they? See the next striking quote. Today, Jehovah guides his people by means of the Bible, his Holy Spirit, and the congregation. And the direction we receive from him is so clear that it is as if our own ears hear the word behind us saying, this is the way, walk in it. And Jesus, in effect, transmits Jehovah's voice to us when he leads the congregation through, well, here it is, the faithful discreet slave, the cult, the 11 cult members in New York. And there's their favorite scripture they like to use to try to back them as cult leaders. And it goes on to say, we must take this guidance and direction seriously, for our everlasting life depends on our obedience. Watchtower 2014, August 15th. Page 21. So it's even stronger, a stronger message now than it was in 1957. They're really pushing people to believing the cult over anything else, believing the faithful discreet slave, they call them, believing the Watchtower. So obedience to the faithful discreet slave, Matthew 24 and 45, So obedience to the faithful discreet slave then is as if Jehovah's voice is speaking to us. That's how they view it. So surely one is to gain everlasting life. It is completely dependent on total obedience to the faithful and discreet slave. Let's look at the next fear element. You remember Jeffrey Winder gets up and says we're not inspired. We don't, David Splain says we don't have all the answers. They change doctrines, every year they're changing things. And they admit that they're just like you and I. They're not even inspired. They're just winging it. Jeffrey Winger. The fourth fear element is consequences of disfellowshipping. Even if you no longer believe and want to leave the organization without any particular reason by writing a resignation, you will be treated in the same way as someone who has been disfellowshipped, because you have violated biblical principles. And the form that the elders submit to the society's headquarters that deals with disfellowshipping must be marked either for disfellowshipping or that you are withdrawing. It's the same form. I think it's an S77 form. And there have been Jehovah's Witnesses who have disfellowshipped from the congregation because they have been abused by being subjected to pedophilia abuse in childhood and can no longer stand it. And even if there were innocent victims who were disfellowshipped, all family contact is interrupted. This can't be right, you might say. You are disfellowshipped or disassociated. You lose all social contact with your friends, and your family ties are broken. And then one will climb out of the monkey cage just because one does not want to be there or does not believe in it anymore. One will be treated exactly the same as one who is thrown out of the monkey cage, and see what guidance is given on this. Watchtower 2016, what your dear family members needs to see is your unwavering attitude to put Jehovah above all else, including the family ties. Do not look for excuses to have contact with disfellowship family members, for example, via email. The Italian edition of the Watchtower, do not send 1SM. Not sure what that is. See also the Watchtower of 2017, October, page 16. Despite the pain of heart, we must avoid normal contact with a disfellowship family member by phone, text message, letter, email, or social media. And this is recent. This is what they're saying. Avoid contact with disfellowship family members. And what does this 4 fear element show? The fear of being disfellowshipped and all the consequences that entails when the family ties will be broken. It makes it impossible for everyone to leave the cage. And if one is expelled because they have broken a biblical principle and are thrown out of the cage, many choose to return voluntarily because of the social loss of family and friends. So here we have it. We looked at 4 fear elements. Number 1, the fear of Satan, the devil. He's being destroyed forever at Armageddon. That's the biggest fear. Number 2, the fear of the faithful, discreet slave, as if they can put fear into us, but they do. They put fear into the JWs. And number 3, the fear of thinking critically about what you believe in. They take your normal thought away. Your brain becomes plastic. And the fear of the consequences of exclusion. That's the biggest one. The shunning. And it is only when you have managed to get out of the cage in some way you will experience the feeling of freedom. And you will see that you have been indoctrinated and locked in an open cage. Indoctrinated. So all the JWs are locked in an open kingdom hall. They're caged in there. Very good illustration. So some who have been disfellowshipped and have come out into freedom, unfortunately, return to the cage because their entire families are still there inside the cage because they have no network outside the cage. And the choice is either to lose all the family who are Jehovah's Witnesses or to be trapped in the cage. Therefore, it is safe to say that being a Jehovah's Witness is like sitting in a monkey cage with an open roof hatch. There you are indoctrinated, and imagine that you are in the only and the best monkey cage and zoo in the world. Yeah, that's what they think, the Kingdom Hall. And here they feed on their favorite food, which is pre-chewed bananas, which they call spiritual food, regurgitated from the faithful and discreet slave. So they'll chew on it first, they'll spit it all up, and then all the Jehovah's Witnesses lap it all up. And they think it's yummy. Well, that's the end of the article. We'll give you a big like on that one. And we'll add a comment in there. Great article. You have nailed it. You nailed it. Okay. Well, that brings an end to our video, the monkey experiment and the JWs. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks to Lassie Strompvist. Strompvist. That's how you say it, I guess. Sorry if I messed that up. Thanks a lot, Lassie. And thanks a lot, Lassie, and have a great day. So if you guys have a story out there, mail it to us at xjw.tv, and we'll try to get your story out. Well, thanks again. Keep living your life with love, and we'll see you on the next video. Have a great day.